Okay, so this lesson is on more exponent laws, specifically dividing. So this first slide shows you the rule. If you divide and they have the same base, then you're actually going to subtract the exponents. So let's do a couple problems to show you. Alright, so here my base is an x, so I'm going to leave it an x. And we subtract because they're dividing. 5 minus 3 is 2. Same thing here. My base is a 6, so I'm going to leave it a 6. That's a big mistake. Don't divide the 6's and get 1. You leave the base the same. So leave it as a 6. Subtract your exponent. 6 minus 2 is 4. And then again, on your EOC, they might want that reduced. If they do, then you would just type in your calculator 6. This button gives you an exponent, so raise to the 4th and hit enter. And it'll give you your answer, 1,296. All right, whole numbers that are not the same. So look here, they were both 6's. I kept the 6 and I just subtracted my exponents. Well, on this, they're not the same base. So I'm going to actually divide these. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So I'm going to put 4. My b's are the same base, so I'm going to bring that b over, and you subtract the exponents. 15 minus 7, whoops. 15 minus 7 is 8. So that's 4b to the 8th. Again, whole numbers, they're different, so I'm actually going to divide them. So I'm going to do 5 divided by 20. And I get 0.25. I'm going to turn it to a fraction, so I'm going to hit math, enter, enter. So this is 1/4. Now remember, if it doesn't have an exponent, you put a 1 there. So I'm going to subtract my a's. So it's 1/4 a. 5 minus 1 is 4. And b, 8 minus 3 is 5. So let me go through that again because that one had a couple steps. So I divided 5 divided by 20 and turned it to a fraction. I put a 1 on this a and I subtracted my a's and got a to the 4th. And I subtracted my b's and got b to the 5th. Okay, so let's put some rules from the last lesson and this lesson together. Remember, if the number is on the outside, that means we multiply. So I'm going to put a 1 on my 2. I'm going to put a 1 on my 3. I'm going to multiply it to everything. Okay, so here's what I get. I get 2 to the 4th, because 1 times 4 is 4. I'm going to get p to the 8th, because 2 times 4 is 8. So that's on top. On bottom, I'm going to get 3 to the 1 times 4 is 4. Now, again, with these whole numbers, they're going to want us to actually work that out. So watch how I'm going to type this in. I'm going to type 2 to the 4th divided by 3 to the 4th. Notice how I put them in parentheses. That just helps your calculator make sure, like, I want to do 2 to the 4th. I want to do 3 to the 4th, and then I'm going to divide them. So that's how it should be typed in. Get a super long decimal. I'm going to change it to a fraction. So math, enter, enter. So I get 16 over 81. Now, there's no p's, right, to combine. So there's a couple ways you could write it. If it's on top, you could just put it beside that fraction, p to the 8th. Or I had 16 over 81. If it's on top, and this is the way I would probably write it. If that is on top, just extend your fraction line and leave it on top. Okay? So that p to the 8th was on top with 2 to the 4th. So I just rewrote it like this. Both ways are correct. This is probably what you'll see on your EOC. Negative exponents. Let's talk about negative exponents. They are not allowed. You can't have them. Can't have a negative exponent. So I'm going to show you how to fix them. If you have a negative exponent, we cannot have it. So you're going to switch where it is. Here's what I mean. I have x to the negative 5th. It's just by itself. Okay, right? We could really put a 1 underneath to make it a fraction, right? You can put a 1 underneath anything and make it a fraction. So I'm going to flip them. I'm going to switch places. I'm going to put the 1 on top. I'm going to move the x to the 5th on bottom. And when I move it to the bottom, it becomes a positive. So that's how you fix it. Let me show you another one real quick. It's really not a hard concept. So if I had x to the negative 2, again, we can put a 1 underneath it, and we just switch their places. So when I moved x to the negative 2 on bottom, it becomes a positive. Okay, what if it's on bottom? Well, if it's on bottom, okay, so this is important. I shouldn't have said switch on this one because we're not going to switch these two. My 2 has a positive 1. I don't want to move it, okay? I don't want to move that. So I'm going to leave my 2 on top, and I'm just going to move this x to the negative 2 on top also. And when I move it to the top, it becomes a positive. All right, same base, so I'm going to leave it an 8. So we're back to the division. Remember, if it's dividing, you subtract. So 2 minus 5 is negative 3. Now, here comes our negative exponent. We cannot have it. So if you remember, we're going to move it to the bottom, and it becomes a positive, and stick a 1 on top. All right, some things to note about this problem right off the bat. We do not need to move that negative 4 because the exponent is a positive 1. So I don't care that the 4 is negative. That does not matter. What matters is that an exponent can't be a negative. So I'm just going to leave my negative 4. My x's, I'm going to subtract them. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Remember our rule, we can't have a negative exponent. So again, negative 4 is going to stay on top. And I'm going to move negative 2, x to the negative 2 on bottom. And when I move it to the bottom, it becomes a positive. Okay, so let's look at these. There's nothing I can combine because I have an x, a y, and a z. The z is already positive, so I'm just going to leave it. I don't want to move that z. I'm going to leave it right where it is to make it stay positive. The x, however, is a negative. To fix a negative, you move it. So I'm going to move the x down to the bottom. X to the 6 moves to the bottom. And when you move it to the bottom, it becomes positive. The y is also negative. So to make it a positive, I'm going to move it to the top. So y to the 4th moves to the top. Some questions you might have. Does it matter the order? Could you have put the z first and the x second? Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that they're both on the bottom. Okay, so let's fix this. First thing I notice is c squared is positive. I'm going to leave it right where it is. Okay, the b is a negative 3, so I'm going to move it to the bottom to make it a positive 3. The d is a negative 5, so I'm going to move it to the top to make it a positive 5. All right, lots of problems. Whole numbers, they're different, so I'm not going to subtract exponent. I'm just going to divide them. I'm going to do negative 3 divided by 21. Long decimal, I'm going to change that to a fraction. I'm going to hit math, and then I'm going to hit enter twice. So I get negative 1 over 7. Now I'm going to start subtracting my a's. Negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6. Something you should know. Whenever you subtract, your answer always goes on top. So I subtracted these a's, negative 4 minus 2, and I put my answer on top. Subtract your b's. 7 minus 7 is nothing. So those b's actually go away. 7 minus 7 is nothing. And then I have two options. I can just bring c to the negative 5 over, or I can go ahead and fix it, right? There's nothing to combine it with, so I'm going to make it a positive by moving it to the top. So c to the 5th goes to the top. Now, there's still something wrong with this answer. I can't have this a to the negative 6. So I have negative 1 over 7. I'm going to leave c to the 5th on top, but I'm going to move a to the negative 6 on bottom so that it can become a positive 6. So final answer is negative 1 c to the 5th on top and 7a to the 6th on bottom. Zero exponents. This is the last new concept. If you have anything to the 0 power, it's just 1. Anything to the 0 power. Let me show you. And this is where if you forget, y'all use your calculators. So if I did 8 to the 0, I get 1. If I do 100 to the 0, I get 1. If I do 523 to the 0, I get 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. So, negative 0.25 to the 0 power is 1. All this craziness to the 0 power is 1. Okay, So 5 to the 0 is just 1. That's going to go away. I don't even care about that. So let's just take care of my t's. I'm going to put a 1 here. The rule is that if they're dividing, you actually subtract. 3 minus 1 is 2. So that answer is just t squared. And that's it. So go try the worksheet. Let me know if you have any questions.